All of this here is where the labyrinth once stood.
These are still some of the most incredible buildings that humankind has ever built.
For centuries, the Great Pyramid has been studied, measured, and debated. Every stone, every angle, every passage has been mapped. Or so we thought. But in 2025, a team of researchers uncovered something buried deep beneath its base. Something no one was prepared for. What they found wasn't just unexpected. It was disturbing.
From archaeology, from ancient texts, and even from understanding the engineering of the pyramid, the people of the pyramid are coming back to life for us.
The pyramid that shouldn't exist. Standing before the Great Pyramid of Giza for the first time is overwhelming. The desert heat rises, and its colossal stone face seems to tower endlessly into the sky. From a distance, it looks like a simple triangle resting on the sand. But the closer one gets, the more unsettling it becomes. The sheer scale is staggering. The pyramid soars almost 500 feet high, and its base covers more than 13 acres. It is made of over 2.3 million limestone and granite blocks, some weighing as much as 70 tons each.
It's composed of an estimated 2.3 million blocks of stones, weighing an estimated 6 million tons.
Each of these blocks is the size of a small house. Even with modern cranes and trucks, moving and stacking just one of them would require extreme planning. Yet thousands of these massive stones were placed with precision more than 4,500 years ago. What makes it even more disturbing is the accuracy of the construction. The base of the pyramid is almost perfectly level. Across all four corners, the difference in height is less than 2 inches. Engineers who have studied the pyramid admit that the builders achieved a degree of precision that seems impossible without advanced tools. This was not a simple piling up of stones. It was engineering on a scale that still challenges the limits of human ability. The alignment of the Great Pyramid is one of its most baffling features. Each side faces almost exactly north, south, east, and west.
When you look at the Great Pyramid's alignment, it's aligned very, very close to true north.
Modern engineers, even with satellites and laser instruments, struggle to achieve that kind of precision. Yet the builders of Giza managed it over 4,500 years ago without compasses or advanced tools. Some researchers believe they tracked the stars, while others suggest they used the sun's shadow. But those methods should have left noticeable mistakes. And here, there are virtually none. This leaves a baffling question. How did a civilization with such limited technology align a monument of this size more accurately than most modern projects? Ancient writings say the pyramid was built under Pharaoh Khufu during the 4th dynasty, around 2600 BCE. It was said to take 20 years and tens of thousands of workers to complete. Yet the records that should exist are missing. There are no surviving blueprints, no detailed papyri describing the methods, no technical instructions left behind. If this truly was Egypt's most ambitious project, why is the evidence of how it was built so vague? Why are there no detailed accounts of the tools, the workforce, or the strategies? And yet, for all its mystery, the Great Pyramid has not finished surprising us. In recent years, technology has allowed researchers to probe the plateau in ways that were never before possible. What they began to see beneath the surface suggested that the true story of Giza might be even stranger than the monument that rises above it. The radar that changed everything. In March 2025, an Italian research team led by Professor Corrado Malanga set up ground-penetrating radar at Giza with one purpose: to test what might lie beneath the Great Pyramid of Giza. Radar had been used at archaeological sites before, but this was different. The equipment had been upgraded to penetrate deeper and produce more detailed readings than any previous survey. The team expected to find cracks in the bedrock or shallow voids, nothing more. Instead, what appeared on the radar shocked them. The scans revealed strange formations more than 2,000 feet below the plateau. These were not jagged or random shapes like natural rock layers. They were symmetrical, spiraling downward in ways that looked structured. At first, Malanga's team thought the machine was malfunctioning, but the scans were run again and again, and the images stayed the same. The formations were too precise to dismiss. If the radar was correct, these were not accidents of geology. They were deliberate. News of the findings spread quickly, and so did the arguments. Supporters of the team called it one of the most important discoveries in Egyptian archaeology in decades. Critics dismissed it as an illusion. Zahi Hawass, one of the most recognized voices in Egyptology, he insisted that the radar images were producing distortions caused by the dense limestone and granite of the plateau, and that what looked like chambers were in fact signal noise or natural fractures in the bedrock. But Malanga and his team did not back down. Their data had been verified, and the patterns were too consistent to ignore. 3 months later, in June 2025, the team returned with improved scanners. The new images revealed even more. Beneath the pyramid were vast hollow spaces that stretched across different levels. Some were the size of Olympic swimming pools. Others dropped down in vertical shafts. Narrow corridors connected them in patterns that looked deliberate. According to unverified reports, some areas even reflected signals differently, suggesting that the walls might contain materials beyond simple stone. The implications were staggering. If these spaces were truly man-made, then Giza's pyramid was not just built on rock, it was built over something hidden. The depth, scale, and symmetry pointed to an intention that had not been acknowledged in Egypt's history. When the June scans were pieced together, they revealed not random voids, but the outline of a vast underground labyrinth. The labyrinth below. When the June 2025 scans were stitched together into a full 3D model, the researchers crowded inside the control tent, eyes locked on the glowing screens. At first, the images showed scattered voids beneath the pyramid, but as the software layered one scan over another, the picture changed. Lines began to connect, forming recognizable patterns. Chambers aligned with shafts, shafts with corridors, and what looked like an underground blueprint began to take shape. The room grew silent. According to reports, several of the scientists looked at one another in disbelief. What they were seeing was not random geology. It was organized. It was planned. The labyrinth stretched for hundreds of meters beneath the plateau. Chambers of different sizes appeared, some wide enough to rival modern concert halls, others no larger than storage rooms. Narrow corridors snaked between them, winding into multiple levels, and vertical shafts plunged into the ground as though connecting one layer of the system to another. The scale alone was staggering, but the layout was even more unnerving. It looked functional, not decorative. Then came the detail that shook the team further. Some of the passages seemed to line up with underground water sources, hidden deep below the plateau. If this interpretation was correct, it meant the builders had designed the labyrinth to interact with natural water flows, an understanding of groundwater far more advanced than historians usually credit to ancient Egypt. Why would a supposed burial system need such careful control of water? Was it meant to sustain life for those who entered? Or could it have been built to use the power of water itself for some unknown purpose? As the scans circulated, comparisons quickly followed. Some researchers noted how the design echoed old legends about hidden halls beneath Egypt, said to hold knowledge sealed away by priests long ago. These stories had long been dismissed as folklore, but the radar images made them harder to ignore. The deliberate symmetry of the labyrinth resembled the very accounts once thought to be fantasy. Speculation grew as experts examined the data more closely. Some suggested the passages may have served as restricted sanctuaries, accessible only to a select few who guarded their secrets. The atmosphere among the team grew tense. The more they studied the labyrinth, the less it resembled a simple underground structure. And just when the researchers thought they had mapped its extent, the scans revealed something entirely different. One chamber that did not fit the pattern at all. The chamber that refused to speak. When the scans of the underground labyrinth were examined more closely, one feature froze the researchers in their tracks. In the middle of the map, surrounded by corridors and shafts, was a void unlike the others. It was not part of the maze. It was not linked to the network. This space was cut off entirely. No tunnels entered it, no staircases connected to it, and no shafts led down. It was there, but unreachable, sealed off on every side. At first, some wondered if it was just a geological pocket, a bubble in the rock. But the longer they studied the scans, the harder that theory became to defend. The void was too symmetrical, too smooth, its edges too sharp. Natural formations tend to be irregular, but this cavity looked deliberate, as if carved out with intent. The realization spread quietly through the tent. Someone in the distant past had built a chamber of enormous size, and then locked it away completely. Why would anyone do that? Theories exploded almost immediately. Some archaeologists suggested it could have been a vault, a hidden storehouse designed to protect treasures from grave robbers. But the chamber was so large that this explanation seemed unlikely. It dwarfed the size of ordinary burial chambers, almost resembling a hall or an arena. What kind of object or material would require such an immense sealed space? Unverified reports claimed that the radar picked up denser signals within the void, hints that something sat in its center, but the scans could not identify what that was. Was it stone? Was it metal? Or, as some speculated in hushed tones, was it organic? That possibility unsettled even the most skeptical experts. Some of the team began whispering about ancient legends, stories of forbidden rooms beneath Giza, said to contain knowledge or relics too dangerous for the world. Local workers reportedly refused to discuss the chamber at all, saying it reminded them of tales their grandparents had told, stories about cursed vaults that brought death to anyone who tried to open them. Historians struggled to find a rational explanation. If it was only geology, then excavation would eventually prove it false. But if it was real, then the builders of the pyramid had gone to extraordinary lengths to create a chamber no human hand could enter. That decision alone carried a chilling implication. Sealing a room so thoroughly could mean one of two things. It was meant to preserve something sacred, or it was meant to contain something that should never be released. As the team studied the void late into the night, one of the lead researchers muttered that it felt like a prison cell carved into the earth. Another admitted later that he could not shake the thought that they had uncovered a warning, a silent message left by the ancients, and that suspicion only grew stronger when researchers began to compare the discovery with stories and records from Egypt's past, where whispers of hidden chambers had circulated for centuries. Whispers from the past. One of the earliest accounts comes from the Greek historian Herodotus, who visited Egypt around the 5th century BCE. He described underground passages beneath the pyramids, claiming that they connected to the Nile through hidden channels. According to his writings, these passageways were meant to carry the pharaoh's body to a secret chamber, sealed off to keep it safe for eternity. Later, scholars dismissed much of what Herodotus wrote as exaggeration or myth, but his words now sound eerily close to what modern scans suggest may actually exist. In the Middle Ages, Arab chroniclers added new layers to the mystery. They wrote of forbidden rooms beneath the sands of Giza, chambers sealed with curses and guarded by unseen forces. Some texts describe how local rulers attempted to break into these vaults, only to be struck down by disasters soon after. To many in the region, the pyramids were not merely tombs, but warnings, The idea that certain chambers were sealed forever was not speculation to them. It was part of their history and faith. The most enduring legend is that of the Hall of Records. Passed down through centuries, it tells of a hidden library buried somewhere beneath the Giza plateau. According to the story, this archive contained the wisdom of a lost civilization far older than Egypt itself. Some versions say it was left behind by survivors of Atlantis. Others claim it held the knowledge of the gods. Believers argue that the hall was hidden deliberately, its contents too powerful or dangerous for ordinary humans. Skeptics have always dismissed the tale as fantasy. Yet, with every new discovery beneath the pyramids, the story finds new life. Even in modern times, myths surrounding Giza have not gone away. Some researchers speculate that the pyramids served as giant vaults of knowledge, meant to preserve records through floods, wars, and the collapse of kingdoms. Others push the theory in a darker direction, arguing that they may have been prisons designed not to protect humanity's past, but to bury something too dangerous to leave in the open. According to unverified reports, even local workers who live near the plateau speak of cursed vaults sealed by the ancients, insisting that disturbing them will bring consequences beyond imagination. For decades, archaeologists brushed aside these accounts as folklore. But the recent scans showing anomalies beneath Khafra's pyramid have begun to change the tone of the discussion. What if Herodotus's passages were real? What if the forbidden chambers of Arab chroniclers were not myths, but descriptions of the same sealed voids now visible on modern radar? What if the Hall of Records was never a metaphor, but an actual space deliberately hidden under the desert? Inside the control tent, the researchers kept returning to the scans. Layer after layer of data revealed shapes that seemed to echo the old stories. The troubling part was not just that the legends existed, but that they appeared to line up with what modern instruments were showing. According to reports, the team grew uneasy as the images sharpened. Some anomalies suggested faint markings along the chamber walls. Others looked like narrow shapes, clustered in ways that did not belong to natural rock. The possibility that these were inscriptions, and even remains, suddenly made the myths feel less like fantasy and more like warnings. The markings, the remains, and the disturbing discovery. With each pass of the radar, details emerged that no one expected. At first, the scans suggested simple voids, but as the images grew sharper, faint traces began to line the walls of certain chambers. They were not random scratches. They followed deliberate lines and curves, forming patterns that looked like symbols. Some researchers speculated these might be inscriptions, but what unsettled the team was that they did not resemble Egyptian hieroglyphs. If accurate, they pointed to a system of communication that was different, perhaps even older than the civilization that built the pyramids above. The discovery alone was enough to divide opinion. Mainstream scholars cautioned that radar data could be misread, that shapes sometimes appear where none exist. But the scans were consistent, and the same traces appeared each time. To some, it hinted at an unknown group leaving its mark deep under Giza, a culture whose presence had been erased from history. The very idea shook Egyptology at its foundation, because it challenged the core belief that Egyptian civilization was the first to shape the plateau. If another culture had carved symbols there first, then Egypt's role as the origin of pyramid building and the timeline of human history itself would need to be rewritten. The unease only grew when the scans revealed something even more disturbing. The deepest levels of the labyrinth contained elongated shapes, arranged in long, narrow clusters. They did not look like stone deposits. They resembled rows of skeletal remains. Natural geology does not create such patterns, and the idea that these might be human bodies was difficult to dismiss. Theories spread quickly, each darker than the last. Some speculated these were workers sealed in after completing their labor, entombed as part of the construction process. Others suggested They could have been slaves sacrificed to ensure the chambers remained closed forever. The most chilling theory was that they were prisoners deliberately buried alive to guard something that was never meant to escape. Reports say a few members of the scanning team were visibly shaken as the data came through. One technician allegedly whispered, "If these are bodies, this is not a tomb. This is a crime scene." The combination of possible markings and apparent remains created a picture that was almost unbearable. It suggested the underground system was not a place of honor, but one of control. Instead of celebrating life after death, it may have been designed to bury the living alongside secrets the ancients wanted to keep hidden. The inscriptions, if real, implied intent. The remains, if real, implied sacrifice. Together, they pointed to a purpose that had nothing to do with honoring kings. As the team compared each data set, a chilling conclusion began to form. It did not arrive in a single moment. It built gradually, with every anomaly and every unexplained reading, until no one could ignore it. The sealed chamber with no entrances, the blocked passages that looked intentionally filled, the long clusters that resembled human bodies, all of it seemed to describe something far more deliberate than a burial ground. The underground complex did not behave like a necropolis. It behaved like a containment system. The isolated void sat at the center, like a locked core. Around it were layers of chambers and corridors that looked less like ceremonial spaces and more like barriers. Some pathways ended abruptly at massive walls, as though they had been cut and then sealed on purpose. According to unverified accounts, certain shafts even showed signs of collapse that looked engineered, as though the builders had destroyed the access after closing it. Specialists who reviewed the data noticed another detail that added to the dread. Several passages seemed to align with natural underground water flows. That detail suggested water might have been used deliberately, not for ritual, but as part of the design. Flooding could have been triggered to block intruders, or water could have been diverted to form barriers that isolated one section from another. Burial chambers did not require that kind of engineering, which made the feature all the more unsettling. If the readings were correct, this was not only architecture, it was a system built to isolate, to control, and to contain. Inside the control tent, the emotional reaction was immediate. Some researchers were furious, convinced that these findings would be dismissed as fantasy no matter how solid the evidence. Others felt genuine fear, believing they had uncovered something they were never meant to see. The silence in the records about this system suddenly felt deliberate, as if the absence of text had been a decision, not an accident. Whispers spread among the team. Some called it a prison. Others avoided that word and chose containment. But the meaning was the same. The underground labyrinth looked like a lock. The pyramid above looked like the lid of a vault. Together, they formed a system that made more sense as a warning than a monument. If this interpretation is correct, then the Great Pyramid of Giza was never only about glorifying a ruler or guiding him to the afterlife. It was about hiding something far more dangerous. It was not just a tomb, it was a barrier. And the disturbing part is not only what might lie inside, it is why the builders decided it had to stay buried forever, and why the ancients decided the world must never see it again. What do you think the pyramids were truly built for? A tomb, a monument, or something far more disturbing? Share your thoughts in the comments. We would love to hear your theory.